Hello, Rick here with another episode of Transmissions. I say another, it's actually been a very long time since we've done one of these pseudo webcast podcast thingies where we discuss whatever's going on at the time, sci-fi related, with this subject being the Avengers Infinity War. And today I'm joined by long-time co-host Tyr.
Hello.
So yeah, we're talking about the Avengers Infinity War because it is currently the biggest sci-fi film that's out at the minute. I mean, I've seen it twice now. Literally, I saw it second time earlier today. I think this film should simply have just been called Thanos, because that was the point of this film. So we're going to obviously do a non-spoiler talk to begin with. For the first couple of minutes, the discussion is going to be spoiler-free. Let's face it, it's really difficult to talk about this film without spoilers, but we're going to give it our best for the first couple of minutes. I will put timestamps at the bottom if you want to skip it and get straight to the spoiler-filled conversations.
Don't worry, we'll make it quite clear when that comes up.
Yes, that right. Yes, I know. So if somehow you've not seen it, you are walking a minefield watching, related videos. But we are obviously going to, try and keep it fairly safe. So yeah, like I'm saying, I've seen it twice. Literally just got back from seeing it the second time about a couple of hours ago now.
I saw it at the beginning of the week.
Yep, you actually saw it before me, I think.
Yep.
Yep.
Took all my willpower not to call you beforehand.
Yeah, you literally went silent for a couple of days afterwards. Like, I think you went to see it, and then I just heard nothing from you for the next couple of days. And then
the only words I said to you, have you seen it yet? No? Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And then when I'd finally seen it, I was just like, I've seen it. And you were like, okay, get on the PlayStation, we're going to talk about this. And over PS4 chat. It was great. I have seen all of the MCU films at least once, some of them several times. I've bought them all on Blu-rays, they've come out. The only one I have not got is Homecoming, but I have seen it. And I know it pretty well. Yeah, go on.
I'm in the same situation, but I haven't actually seen Homecoming. That's the only one I haven't seen.
Mm-hmm. I mean, to be fair, for this film, for Infinity War, Homecoming's not exactly a necessary film. You can kind of skip it and understand this film for the most part. But with this film, that is a shaky ground. Skipping any of the Marvel films before seeing Infinity War is kind of shaky ground to be on, which we'll get to later on. But yeah, I've also, massive Marvel fan, followed the comics, more of the old stuff. The stuff that's being converted onto the big screen now is pretty much everything that I'm familiar with from Marvel. Not so much the newer stuff, but yeah, a lot of the stuff that's portraying itself onto the screen I've read in some form. I think you're not really a comics guy, are you?
Not so much with the comics. I am a fan of a superhero movie, so
yeah.
This hits quite close to home.
Yeah, so there are two different backgrounds and viewpoints on this.
Even more so, as we will go into shortly, we both have very differing opinions of this film.
Yeah, this film had a lot of hype behind it, because after all, it was 10 years of build-up. I mean, arguably 10 years of build-up towards this big event. Thanos was teased from the end of the Avengers.
Let me just throw out there, hype is a dangerous game.
Can be, yes.
It doesn't matter what media it comes under, hype is usually very dangerous.
Yeah, you very much have to measure your expectations going into this film, because it's not going to be... I mean, you might think it is. I didn't think it was the most amazing, bombastic Marvel film there's ever been. I thought it was good. I did like it, though. I did fanboy out all the way through it.
I did take it kind of the other way. Obviously, I enjoy Marvel films as much as the next person. I knew this wasn't going to be everything they were going to promise from the get-go. I'm very skeptical in that respect, because it's an awful lot to get in a single movie, or two parts as this case is. My expectations were tempered, but I felt a little bit let down on it. So I'm the negative Nancy in this one. Yeah,
so like I say, it's going to be two different viewpoints. I was completely off the walls, fanboying throughout the whole thing. Then you've got a bit more of a reserved approach from Tyr, who I don't... Is it fair to say you hated the movie, or is it more of a... you just...
I wouldn't go quite as far as hate, but
no, okay.
it wasn't one of my favourites, and I think they could have done a lot more.
Yeah, okay, so it sounds like you hit it 50-50.
Yeah, pretty much.
50% one way, 50% the other, 50% the other. You are balanced as Thanos.
Just like Thanos.
Ideas going in. Again, these are our non-spoilery ideas that we had before the film. But we had ideas going in. I think both of us had the notion that Vision was probably going to die going into this film because he's got the Mind Stone in his head. Thanos needs the Mind Stone. Yeah. And I think we each had ourselves a little list of sort of like tick characters as to who's going down, who's not. Because the trailers very heavily hinted at certain characters being axed and killed off.
And let's face it, it's Infinity War. People are going to die in this film.
Yeah, to be fair,
characters you love are going to die.
If it's based on the source material, things are going to have to get dire. But then again, you kind of have to expect it because it is Thanos they're fighting. He is the Marvel's big bad. He is their dark side. He is their Doctor Who's master. He's the big bad of that universe. You know, he's the guy that single-handedly can equal all of the Avengers. So there has to be stakes. Okay, so like I say, we've already established that we're approaching it from two different mindsets. Let's just go into our initial non-spoiler thoughts of the film, I guess. Did you want to open it with, like, you think got enough screen time?
Let's put it this way. As you said, if you fanboy over the films, each character kind of gets their 5 minutes of fame in this film.
Yeah.
I personally would say no more, though less. You know, there were some characters that did get a bit more screen time. And to be honest, it did pay off for who was on screen at the time. You know, the people who were on more definitely got more of a fleshed out story to them. To put it simply, if you have a look at the poster for it, the size of the characters dictate how long they were on screen.
For the most part, yeah. For the most part, I'd agree with that. A lot of these characters, I would tend to agree, there's not much here in the way of character development or character growth for a lot of them. Some of them do get that, as you mentioned. A lot, you know, several of the characters do get a lot of background story and a lot more development added to them. Vision in particular, but a lot of the other characters as well get no development whatsoever. In my opinion, I'm okay with that because we've had 10 years of Marvel build-up of all these other films where these characters got to shine, they got to show their best. You know, Bucky's arc was throughout the Captain America franchise. Just because he doesn't get much screen time in this didn't bother me as much.
And for the most part, I do agree. I do feel that there were some characters that needed a little bit of development of how they actually fit into the story. You know, there was a few scenarios throughout the film that I feel that because they weren't really introduced into the cast particularly well, it does show. You know, I'm not saying this film isn't without faults like this.
I think one thing they did manage to capture, though, is that the different franchises that come up, they all still stay quite true to the flavour of their franchise. Like, there are scenes in it with Doctor Strange, and they do feel very Doctor Strangey for the most part. When the Guardians turn up, they feel very Guardians of the Galaxy, and a lot of that is down to the fact that they do reutilise the soundtracks from those films to give that background music, the theme music that we're all aware of. Like the Captain America theme plays when Cap first turns up, the Strange theme, the harpsichords start twanging away in the background when he's on screen.
It's something I definitely can't fault is the musical scores, and every Marvel movie is pretty phenomenal with their sound systems, but this one didn't disappoint in that respect.
Yeah, no. And the other thing I think we can agree on is Thanos gets a lot of development in this film. This is why I was saying the film should have just been called like Thanos, not the Avengers, because this really is all about him, and he gets a lot of development, a lot of screen time. He gets quite fleshed out. For me, I would even go to say he's probably my favourite current like MCU villain. I think he's definitely had the most in it. I think for me, he surpasses Loki as a villain as well.
Realistically, most villains are somewhat forgettable. Thanos is not that. Thanos is not forgettable in the slightest.
Exactly. I would say that's the trade-off for having no character development for the rest of the cast. They've already done that, so they can ignore it for this film, push it aside, and focus on creating a fleshed-out bad guy.
Yeah, a villain backstory was real.
Yeah, he was pretty sweet as a villain, as far as that goes. I think we agree. This is the weird thing. I think we agree on the issues and the negatives the criticisms of this film, I think we agree on them. It's just the level to which they affected your enjoyment of the film is a bit different for me. Like I say, I was fanboying through the whole thing with a big dumb grin on my face. The issues I noticed didn't really affect it for me. I was just like, I don't care, I'm having fun.
Yeah, I noticed exactly the same issues, but
Yes.
to me they felt quite a bit more poignant.
Yeah, like I think one of the fears I did have going in was that the Marvel branded sense of banter humour might be getting a bit stale by this stage. It was not for me. In this film, I think it actually hit home. Anymore, it would have been too much. I think they nailed it here, but I was worried because you had things like the jokes in Thor Ragnarok. In fact, the joke that they end on, there's a joke they end on towards the end of the film in Thor Ragnarok, which feels kind of out of place, and it's like,
It kind of destroys the atmosphere.
yeah, it's like this should be a poignant moment.
Again, I'm kind of in the minority camp when it comes to the humour of them. I personally didn't like so much humour in Thor Ragnarok. I mean, a lot of people say that it's, you know, it was the best Guardians film purely from the humour standpoint. And let's be honest, this film, it felt significantly more serious, which I personally liked. That was something I did enjoy. I felt that the humour was on point. They didn't overuse it.
Yeah, I will agree with that. The humour was actually, the humour was spot on. So yeah, you go. Two things we can agree on. Thanos was a badass as a villain, and the humour was on point in this film. Any more though, it would have been too much. It is a long ass film though.
Yeah, Lord of the Rings-esque, we'll put it that way.
Yeah, can you imagine a supercut of this film, kind of like an unedited version?
Oh God.
In fact, weren't you saying a lot of the issues in this could have been perhaps sorted if it had been a bit longer?
Somewhat. Personally, because of how much they had to fit in this film, I felt it was quite rushed. If they had, and granted I know it would make it an incredibly long series over quite a stretch of time, if they'd have split this film in two and given some more of the characters a little bit more focus on it, I think it could have been a little bit better.
Okay, or perhaps not even necessarily splitting it in two, because you had Captain America Civil War, which was basically Avengers 2.5. You know, it added a lot to the Avengers film. Perhaps they could have done something here with making setup for Infinity War as an all-in-one cohesive film, maybe a Guardians style thing. I don't know.
Yeah, I would agree.
I don't think it needed that, but again, that's where different approaches to it come in. It is definitely gone.
Suffice to say, they really should have given a toilet break in the middle of it.
Yeah, that is a good point actually there. I will say it's not a film where you can avert your eyes for too long. A lot of films have that one scene where you can slip out and be like, all right, nothing's important's happening, I can go and come back. For me, if you did that during this film, you'd come back and be like, what's happened? Oh, I missed. That was a fairly big plot change.
Where are we?
Yeah.
Who's here?
Yes, that is nothing. The film does jump around a lot.
Yeah.
I think, again, these are all criticisms that I noticed in the film, but they didn't bother me. When I was starting to get invested in a scene and starting to feel, getting really interested in what was happening, the scene would change and it would go somewhere else, and I'd be like, ah, damn it, no, let's go back to the other place. I want to see what's going on with the other people. It's definitely a part one of a two-part film.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this film is entirely set up to be a multi-part series, and it feels like it. By the end of the film, there's no other way of saying, okay, yeah, there's something else coming. It's something else coming. In my view, it felt incomplete.
Yeah, I would say incomplete in some sense, but complete in others. I think for the overall narrative is incomplete. There definitely, I can't argue with that. It is definitely a part one. But I think for a Thanos story, it feels like this was his complete story arc sort of thing.
Yeah.
Again, that goes back to Thanos feeling like it's quite a developed, well done character.
Oh man, this is difficult to talk without spoilers.
It really is. So I have seen, between watching it twice, between making notes for this and then watching it a second time, I did check out a couple of other reviews, and so many people have been saying a similar sort of thing where they're like, I cannot talk to you about this film without spoilers. Even my mates, like, I've gone to work and I've spoken to it with my workmates and my colleagues, and they've all just been sort of like, I am not going to talk about this film with you because I can't without spoiling it. And I've seen remarkable restraint from people just generally. This is probably the highest level of restraint I've seen when it comes to spoilers. I've not really heard that many people talking about it, or they've been talking about it in like the spoiler circles. So my overall recommendation for this film would be go see it. If you have seen, if you're up to date with the MCU.
Yeah, get up to date first and then see it.
Yeah, because if you've missed some films, you don't necessarily need to see every film. Like, I would say you can probably skip out on Spider-Man Homecoming.
Ant-Man.
Ant-Man. I guess, obviously like the original, Iron Man, the original Thor, things like that. But then again, if you've not seen any of the MCU stuff, why are you watching a video discussion about Avengers Infinity War sort of thing if you've not seen anything Marvel?
Stop wasting your time and go and watch some other Marvel films.
Yeah, there you go. But this film is like 100% for the people who have seen everything and are up to date with Marvel. If you've missed a couple of things, you can afford to skip one or two things, but if you've missed even like 3 or 4 of the films, there are going to be
even the after credit scenes.
Yeah, even as we'll address that later, because there is something that you've not seen which you brought up as like, why is this a thing? And I was like, oh, it's an after credits, and you were like, I missed like a 2-second scene and it turned into a major sort of disagreement with the film sort of thing. It doesn't have much character development in it for anyone but Thanos and perhaps 1 or 2 other key characters, but I don't think there needs to be. This film is just complete payoff. It is the culmination of these 10 years of films. It's the beginning of the end, in quotation marks. Of course, it's not actually going to end because it's the MCU and it rakes in so much money, but it's the beginning of the end, as it were.
My takeaway is it will give you 5-minute snippets of your favourite superheroes. If you wanted an epic, complete story, temper your expectations before you go in.
Again, it's complete in some senses with certain character arcs, but it's not complete in other ways in some very big points. It is very much, as you said, like a part 1 of a 2-part film, which, yeah, okay, it seems obvious, but it feels like it, and it's really hard to talk about why that is so without talking spoilers.
So, if you were to give this a film, Rix, if you give this a film, if you were to give this a rating, what would you give it?
I would definitely give it a film. I mean, no, I wouldn't do that. That would be filming a film, which would be illegal and not allowed in cinemas. So yeah, like
out of 6 Infinity Stones.
Out of 6 Infinity Stones, I'd give it 5 Infinity Stones. I think there are issues in it, and for me, they weren't enough to dampen my enjoyment of it. But it's not a perfect film, and the reason I'm holding back one of the stones is generally because like it is a part 1 of a part 2, and part 2 might change how I look at this when it comes out. That makes sense?
It could change your perception of this film entirely. Yeah.
Things in this film could happen and then ultimately amount to nothing depending on the second film. There could be like no payoff for certain events. But
let's face it, see it or it will get spoiled eventually. People have been incredibly reserved,
that's only
but it won't last forever.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. But then again, on the opposite side of it, you need to see the other films before seeing this one, and that's a lot of film time. It's like 31 hours of consecutive film time.
I mean, I personally, again, I've harped on the fact that I'm a little bit more negative than most people. I'm definitely in the minority, but I personally would only give it 2 stones.
2?
Yeah,
2
specifically
stones?
1 mind, 1 time.
Is that like your way of saying it? I'd watch it once.
It was a case of 1 time, it took a long time, and 1 mind, you've really got to know what's going on.
I suppose. Alright, yeah, okay, fine. Yeah, I will accept that. I will allow that, as Stark put it. Considering it actually, you've put more thought than I did into the Infinity Stones rating system. I just went ahead and chucked 5 at it. Yeah, fine, whatever. 5, I don't care. Take them all. So yeah, I guess that sort of ends it for the non-spoilery talk, because we need to talk about spoilers.
Okay, spoilers time.
Okay.
If you have not watched it, this is the time to jump off. Then come back to it and listen to the rest of our conversation, please.
Yes, Sally. Alright, so first off, why is it so hard to talk about this film without mentioning spoilers?
Because there are so many damn spoilers.
Yeah, there's everything in this film, everything in from start to finish is tied to sort of like the emotional reactions that you're going to feel, the emotional impact of this film, and there's a lot in it. Things happen constantly all the time. It's a roller coaster. There are jokes, there are deaths, there are long waited like meetings of characters that happen, and I think that's what makes it so difficult to talk about without talking spoilers, is because a lot of these emotional events that you want to talk about that would come up in a review are so intrinsically linked to the events themselves that you can't talk about because they're spoilers, and they are everywhere throughout this film, like from the get-go.
Yeah, I mean, within the first 15 minutes, right off the back, Heimdall's dead, Loki's dead, the Hulk got smashed, the whole of Ragnarok ending was completely undone.
Yeah, that did, on second viewing, that did irk me a little bit, because Thor Ragnarok, where were we at the end of that? Thor and Loki reconciled. Loki's dead. Thor took over as king of the Asgardians. He loses an eye throughout the course of this film, gets an eye back. Loses Mjolnir, gets a Stormbreaker. The Asgardians evacuate Asgard, and Odin gives a whole speech about how Asgard is its people, not the place. It's like, cool, well now guess what? The people's dead.
Well, allegedly it's meant to take 50% of people. It's one minor gripe I have on it. Allegedly it's meant to take 50% of the people, is Thanos' grand plan. Where did the rest of the Asgardians go?
Yeah, okay, my personal headcanon is that Korg and Meek and Valkyrie, they jumped on escape pods with 50% of the other Asgardians. They managed to escape while Thanos killed the rest.
But that's the thing, it's just headcanon.
Yeah, there's nothing to support that in the film. I just don't want Korg and Meek to be dead, because I liked them. What's it? Thanos' henchmen in the film. The Black Order.
Yeah.
Alright, on first watching, they were completely flat. There was like no dimensionality to them.
The most personality they got is when they got killed off.
Kinda, yeah. If you didn't do the research beforehand and look into these characters beforehand, this film does not explain who they are. It doesn't explain who the Black Order is. It doesn't explain who, that Proxima and Clave are. I think they're married, actually. I think they're actually a couple in the stories. It doesn't explain who. I've forgotten his name again already. I think it's Eben or something like that. The wizard. He's a cool character. He's probably the one that gets the most screen time out of all of them.
Most annoying voice in the film, though.
Squidward, yeah. Yeah, he probably gets the most development out of all of them. But even film, I think, addresses him by name. I think once, maybe twice on Thanos' part. But I don't even think it gets mentioned that they're the Black Order or anything like that.
No. Realistically, everyone else is kind of forgettable.
Yeah, he's got a big generic alien army at his command we don't know, that it seems to have come out of nowhere. Apparently, according to like original writings of the script or plans or something like that, this is what I heard, that they're meant to be the race of deviants, which is sort of basically Thanos is from Titan. In the MCU, it's a different planet just called Titan, just by coincidence. It's
convenient.
It's not the moon. In the comics, it was the moon Titan. But he's from a race called the Eternals. But he's a genetic. The reason he's purple and has the bubbly chin is because he's a genetic throwback to a earlier subset of the species, sort of thing, called the Deviants. And apparently, that's what this alien army is. But again, nothing like that is addressed in the film. It would be cool if they were.
And realistically, the alien army are very different compared to everyone else. They are the mindless drones, really.
Yeah, they are literally mindless drones. They throw themselves at things until it dies, isn't it? And they're throwing themselves at the shield, like neutralising themselves, trying to get through the shield. They were literally just cannon fodder.
Yeah, it was just numbers.
Yeah, Zergs. Yeah, but again, like I say, on a second watching, I did notice something that fleshed them out a little bit. But yeah, like I say, on rewatching, I did notice during the big battle at Wakanda, when Scarlet Witch jumps in, throws away the diggers, and Okoye cracks the joke about why was she up there all the time? Like, because she's uber powerful. One thing that actually fleshed out the Black Order is the fact that the minute she stepped out onto the field and threw away those tanks, Proxima saw that she'd left Vision's side and was like, okay, Vision's unguarded, go now. And it's Glaive, her husband, infiltrates and attacks Vision. Now, what fleshed out the Black Order for me here is that in the conversation beforehand, when Cap goes to parley with them to see, if they can reach a surrender, because he's Cap, and of course he's going to try that first. He goes up to them. I think Widow says something like, "Oh, where's your friend?" referring to Glaive, who last time we saw him got attacked, and I think Glaive got stabbed and attacked by Widow earlier on. Proxima says, you'll pay for his life with yours, insinuating he's dead, when he's not. He's been sent surreptitiously round the back of Wakanda and is waiting to infiltrate. So they're waiting to draw Scarlet Witch out so that they can grab Vision with minimal effort.
Let's be honest, that's probably the subtlest part of Thanos' plan in the entire film.
Yeah, to be fair, it is, yeah. But it's something that I missed in just the mayhem and the action the first time. I was just like, this is so cool. Aliens are fighting and it's amazing. And yeah, I missed it the first time. On rewatching, I was like, wait a minute. She just told them that he's dead. He's not dead. He goes to grab Vision. And he waits until Scarlet Witch is on the field beforehand, before he does that. And I was like, oh, he's been planted there ages ago and they've actually been scheming beforehand. That's clever. See, they are using tactics. So it fleshes them out a little bit as showing they're not just mindless thugs.
And then they die.
But yeah, then they all die, and a lot of them, again, I think all of them except one die without even actually being named.
There were a few questions of, oh, who are they? And the most people could do was give a shrug because they'd only seen MCU.
Yeah, a lot more people have seen the MCU than have read the comics. But yeah, I suppose the only way really to go through it is because it's all over the place, is to break it down into like the individual character story arcs. So I guess first, Gamora's arc with Thanos.
Unexpected.
Yeah, I will give it that. I didn't expect that. I had a lot of expectations going into this film as to who was going to die. I thought it was going to be Vision and I think Stark were my two bets.
Well, let's address the elephant in the room here. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of talk about, what about the Soul Stone? Where is the Soul Stone going to come from? And I actually think they did a very good job of doing that. And again, I've been very critical of this film, but the emotional impact that leads, that is very impressive. Yes,
this is what I think cemented Thanos as a really good villain. Terrifying in a way. He's an emotional villain. He's not a psychopath, because a psychopath doesn't understand things like love and doesn't have a good grasp on emotional stability. They're neutral. They don't perceive emotions the same way we do. They can't read emotions. Thanos can. I feel like he genuinely loved his adopted daughter Gamora.
At the end of the day, he's one of the villains that he is the hero of his own story. He cannot see that he is the villain in that situation. For all intents and purposes, he is doing exactly the thing that he believes must be done, no matter what the cost, even if it hurts him emotionally.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people have brought up the point where they're sort of like, well, if he had the Infinity Gauntlet, why didn't he just double the amount of resources available for everybody? He could do whatever he liked, and I think that's not the point. The point is, he's been on this path that he's on for years, that he's so committed to it that compromising in that fashion just doesn't occur to him. It's not the point anymore. He has to complete the mission. He is unwavering in it, because if he wavers with his goal, he might stop. In fact, he's got that line, isn't he, where he says, I've given up on my destiny once before, never again.
Yeah. What did it cost?
And I think that's referring to the time he first brings up to his home planet, where he's like, we got to stop this, we got to kill half of us, otherwise we're all going to die. And they're like, no, that's nonsense, you're mad. And then they all proceed to, all of them get wiped out. And throughout this film as well, he doesn't kill that many people.
Himself,
personally. He doesn't actually kill that many people. When he's fighting them, he doesn't actually do much killing himself.
Well, until the end.
But the one person he does kill outright, I think he kills Loki to begin with. No, actually, no, scratch that. He kills Loki and Heimdall, isn't it? Alright, he kills a lot of people. But when he doesn't have to, when he's fighting them and he can neutralise someone rather than kill them, he does.
Yeah, that initial scene with Heimdall and Loki, it points him in a very different light compared to the rest of the film. It's to begin with, he seems callous and uncaring, and then the further through the film you get, the more you realise, no, he's doing this for a reason, and it's almost like it totally changes his character.
He's an onion.
He has layers.
Layers. Yay.
Looks like an onion.
I was going to say he's going to make a chin joke there. But yeah, he's a very well developed villain. Yeah, I think Gamora's death, didn't expect it. Expected it when they said that it needed a sacrifice. I was like, well, okay, it's not going to be Skull. It's not going to be Thanos. That leaves Gamora. I expected it from then, but at the same time, I didn't expect it to have that emotional impact that it did.
Yeah, the fact that when it was stated, you can only sacrifice something you love. It was one of those that she was almost going to turn around and go, yeah, but you'd love nothing. But then you see this total other side of Thanos.
Yeah, like the fact he just turns around and she's like, tears, really? And then Red Skull's like, oh, they're not for him. And it's just like, oh, my heart sank. I was like, oh no. How horrible is that? That the one feature that could be a redeeming quality in Thanos, his love, the fact that he is capable of love, is what is going to be partially the undoing of everything, of the universe. It's like it turns his redeeming features into a danger for everyone else as well.
Yeah, into just another weapon.
Yeah. I thought that was really good. Okay, another arc. Rocket and Thor, which was an unexpected pairing.
Rocket, Thor, and Groot.
And Groot, oh yeah. Alright, okay, that was, yeah. Groot really didn't have much to do in this film. He had maybe one big moment. But to be fair, I didn't have an issue with that because Groot gets a lot of screen time anyway. And
yeah, and let's face it, this wasn't a Guardians movie, so...
No. This is the story arc that I thought was expendable, I guess. To me, it was the arc that could have been shortened. It didn't need as much going on as it had.
I agree. Ironically, this was one of my favourite bits of the film.
They have that scene on the ship, don't they? Thor and Rocket. And they have a heart-to-heart, which I did enjoy. I thought that was really well done. Hemsworth really did a good job of portraying a side of Thor that, of course, it would be there. Of course, it's gonna. He's lost practically all his family members. He's just lost most of his entire people. After becoming king and meant to be responsible for them. And
it's one of those that he's one of those actors you wouldn't necessarily put that to his character, that you could feel the anger, the fear, and the overall atmosphere that he's putting into it. The fact that he has lost everything,
and he's trying to put a brave face on it. But yeah, that was a really good performance, and that was another good moment that I really did like. See, this is weird because we share different opinions of this film, but we can both point out the same strengths and weaknesses. It's just they are at different levels for each of us, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. But the bits that we thought were good, we seem to both agree on. Did not believe Peter Dinklage as a giant dwarf.
I love that.
I had trouble seeing Dinklebot as anything except as Tyrion Lannister, I'll be honest. I was just like, oh, it's a giant Tyrion Lannister.
With a beard.
With a beard.
Well, more of a beard.
More of a beard, yeah. And more hair. I don't know. As soon as I realised who it was, I was so taken aback by, oh, wait a minute. That's Peter Dinklage. Because I didn't know he was in it. So the minute I recognised who it was, I was like, that's Peter Dinklage. For the rest of the scene and for the rest of the film, it was Peter Dinklage. It wasn't the dwarf. It wasn't.
To be honest, I did see his name on the cast. And I was like, well, how is he going to fit into it? And then as soon as Thor said, we've got to go and see the dwarves, I was like,
oh, right.
Really? Are they going to do that, really?
Oh, okay. So maybe it would have changed things, maybe, because then I can see the shock of him being like a towering, a dwarf giant, I guess, or a giant dwarf. I'm not sure which way around it would be. But the idea, I can see the payoff then if you perhaps had in mind his appearance beforehand. In terms of the lore side of things, though, I really did enjoy the literal backstory they went into here with this big forge around a star.
Yeah. It tied together that whole feeling of with the Asgard, things are so advanced it seems like magic, but when you break it down, it is just advanced technology.
Yeah, like hyper advanced stuff. Like you hear about how Mjolnir was forged from this dwarven alloy in like the heart of a star, and you think that sounds so mystical and magical. How could that have worked? How did they forge a hammer in a sun? And then you see this giant apparatus, which is like Dyson spheres and Dyson rings around a star that sort of siphon off its energy and use it to smelt the alloy.
The crucible of the alloy, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like that is basically a flowery metaphor for a solar powered sword forge. Okay, I dig it.
Yeah, I mean, as I previously have kind of alluded to, this kind of thing, metallurgy is something that I enjoy in my spare time. It did bug me that they kept on saying it was forged. It's not. It's cast. But that's just me. That's me splitting hairs.
Yeah, it was poured out into a cast, wasn't it? And they do say it was a cast, so I guess that would.
And something just to point here, and this is kind of me on a slight tangent. The whole idea that Groot gave, some of himself to create the handle of Stormbreaker. It was a nice touch, but they could have gone further. They could have put Groot died straight off, just died,
Or incinerated picking it up or something.
He put all his energy into grabbing hold of it, and it just stopped him regenerating. And he ends up burning up or something like that. And I felt the whole payoff with that would have been a lot more of an emotional death per se.
I suppose
in quotation.
Groot's already died once in the MCU continuity. I suppose doing it again would be a bit sort of a cop out, because he'd have to be dead permanently. But they had this. If at any time they were going to kill off characters, Infinity War is the time to do it.
But kill him off meaningfully.
Yeah, and to be fair, thinking back on it, it would have been nice, because they do drop a line earlier on.
It would have been.
Nice. I get it.
Carry on, sorry.
They earlier on, they do mention how...
Oh, don't be such a stick in the mud. You can cut this bit out.
It's fine. No, I'm keeping this in, mate. Because, I'm sorry, the puns you've been made now, they're rooted in the audio. They are sticking. Double pun, rooted and sticking. Three root sticks. I'll just leave. I can't stop.
Please stop. Please stop.
Right, so, but yeah, like I was saying, right, yeah. So there was a line earlier on that was a bit of a throwaway where Thor says, Star-Lord's like, "Oh, can't we all have Thanos level killing weapons?" And he's like, "No, you can't use them." Basically, insinuating you're not Asgardian, it will drive you mad. We see Groot literally grab it and pick it up, and okay, he's not using it, but it would have been cool to see that sort of come back, because then Groot picks it up, and it would have been cool to see that the toll it extracts on someone that's not of demigod status. But yeah, that doesn't happen. He cuts off his arm, gets a new handle. As it is, quite like it. But that whole arc for me, that was the arc that I think dragged on a bit too much. Could have been shorter, didn't need as much screen time. That could have been devoted to other characters, I think. So yeah, the Tony Stark and the Peter arc, their story arc of mentorship and sort of apprenticeship continues in this film, all the way through Spider-Man Homecoming. This is the film that you've not seen.
Yep.
So, the Iron Spider suit, when it came out.
Yeah, I missed that entirely, because I hadn't seen Homecoming.
Yeah, and even in the trailers for Homecoming, the Iron Spider suit's not in any of that, so Tyr had no indication that it was coming up at all. It was a after credits scene. I think it was after credits, or it was just at the end. But either way, it was an after credit scene of Homecoming where Peter turns up to Stark, and Stark's been preparing. So he did have it in development for a while, but for you seeing it,
it came out of the blue.
Yeah,
it was nice, but it really came out of the blue.
Yeah, it came out of nowhere. But that serves as a good example where literally this is why it's dangerous to not have seen all of the Marvel films before seeing this one, because even such an inconsequential moment as that after credit scene,
a literal 2-minute scene.
Yeah,
and it made no sense to me.
Yeah, and if you up the scale, for example, if you haven't seen Black Panther, half the cast that turn up in that end battle, you're gonna be like, who are you? Who are you? Who are you? I know you're Black Panther, you're in Civil War, but who are you lot?
Where are we?
Yeah, yeah, and where are we? You get all the...
If you hadn't seen it, if you hadn't seen Black Panther, you still wouldn't know where that was.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, and I guess it would be a bit of a shock as well to see this advanced tech, and you wouldn't understand the blending of sort of culture and tech that Wakanda's meant to have from all its tribes and things like that.
Which, can I just point out now, Black Panther, amazing film.
Yeah.
Really well done.
Yeah, Black Panther was pretty good. I did enjoy it. I would say... I was about to say, again, it's on the film list where you could afford to not see Black Panther before you see Infinity War, but you could not see it with the asterisk of if you get someone to explain to you what happens during it.
Really, it's just worth seeing it to have to not go through that conversation.
Yeah, okay, yeah, alright, yeah. You don't have to see it, but I would completely recommend seeing it because it was a good film by itself. Oh yeah, you've got the Banner and Bruce Banner and Hulk story arc gets continued because his arc's pretty much been from Civil War through sort of Thor Ragnarok. He's not had his own film like most of the other Avengers. His story arc...
I mean, judging by the early Hulk films, it's probably a good idea, but...
Yeah, to be fair. The Hulk films got better as they went along.
But they couldn't get much worse from the first one.
Yeah. This is the first time Hulk, when he fights Thanos, what a way to establish Thanos as a veritable threat than to have him pick the biggest guy and take him out. It's like that. I can't remember what it is. There's a comedy that says...
It's the prison motive, isn't it?
Yeah. You go to prison, you find the biggest guy in the prison, and you lay him out to establish yourself. That's basically what Thanos did. Turned up, found the biggest bruiser, Hulk, laid him out, clean out, gone.
With no effort expended.
With no effort.
And that sticks with the Hulk through most of the film, really.
Yeah. When Banner tries to Hulk out a lot.
Yeah, there's fear there. There's fear of what happened. There's fear of what could happen.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much the conclusion I came to, certainly, watching it, and I think a lot of other people did as well, that Hulk is terrified of getting his ass kicked again. Yeah.
That's one thing I did like, by the way, is the trailers that have been doctored.
Yes, yeah, because we saw Hulk on in the trailers fighting in Wakanda, didn't we? But he's not there.
Yeah, it was the suit.
Yeah, there's the Hulkbuster armor, wasn't it? And I think...
Precisely.
Yeah, and they cut out the amount of gems that Thanos managed to achieve during this film as well, during the trailers, which I like, because in this age of trailer analysis and people, spoiler theory groups that start cropping up before a film's even out, see Westworld and Star Trek Discovery for theories that cracked the plot before it even aired in full, doctoring your trailers might be the way to go to keep things under wraps.
Lie to your consumers, they won't know.
Yeah, exactly. Why not? What could go wrong? In fact, they've done this even further, haven't they? You were saying?
Yeah, I was having a look at their release schedules for film, and granted, it was a little while ago that I'd seen their list of potential films. Just before Infinity War actually aired, they edited it and took out a lot of their planned releases. So it left the ending up in the air, because then you can't tell who lives, who dies, and anything from that. And it drives a lot more speculation.
We're in the spoilers section now, so we can say Black Panther gets killed off, and you're saying like what was it, Black Panther 2 or something disappeared from the schedule?
Yeah, there was due to be a Black Panther 2, and
I mean there's probably still going to be. Let's face it.
There was Guardians 3.
Yeah, that was being talked about for ages.
Disappeared.
Yeah, because there were originally rumours that Guardians 3 as well would focus a lot on Gamora rather than Star-Lord. Which...
Well, that's not going to happen.
I mean, or if it does, I don't know.
It's going to be a very short movie.
Or it's a 2-hour film with just a camera on a single shot for a long time. That's dark. What was the next story arc we've got up?
It was the Wanda and Vision.
Oh, yeah, their relationship.
Yeah, their relationship.
I bought it. I enjoyed their relationship. I actually...
It was one of the few parts of the film that was truly fleshed out.
Yeah, he got a lot...
I felt that it actually had some impact because of that.
Yeah, I think they both got a lot of character development and backstory in here. This is one, along with Tony Stark, these were the two characters I think that got the most development out of the film.
For one, you can kind of understand because he has got one of the Infinity Stones in his head.
Yes, I think because of that, both of us and many other people had the idea in our heads. We're like, he's dead. He's dead. Vision's going to die. Thanos needs the stone. It's in his face. he's going to get it. But they played on that as well, like the amount of times Vision gets put in danger, whereas like they're trying to wrench the crystal out of his head and he's just like in pain. It's just like, oh god, he's dead, this is it, he's dead now. Oh no, he's been saved. Oh no, he's dead, he's gonna die again. Oh no, oh no, oh he's saved.
That's one thing I would like to point out, kind of jump in between two separate parts of the film here.
Yep.
But the initial time that the stone is in danger from him, you know, when the Black Order are initially trying to get the stone from Vision, it's the fact that it's being pried out. It's slow. It's painful. But there's care.
Yeah, because they don't want to damage it.
Compared to Thanos.
Yeah, when he turns up again.
Yeah, and the nicest way is he jams his finger into his head to rip out the stone. It was brutal.
Yeah, it was. You'll get to that proper analysis in a minute, but definite brutality there on Thanos' part. But yeah, they played up on the fact that Vision was sort of doomed from the start. In fact, it became a central plot point of the film was to see if they could save Vision.
How long will Vision last?
Yeah, although I don't think he's deaded completely. In fact, you pretty much called a plot point of the film before seeing it, didn't you?
Yeah, one of my pet theories beforehand was that obviously Thanos will get the stone, but being that there is enough of him left there, they could technically, they can rebuild him stronger, and they could reassemble his
60 million vibranium man.
But yeah, seriously, that was my theory, is that they could, in theory, put his psyche back together.
Yeah, and that actually became sort of the plot point of the film, was that can we extract the stone without killing Vision? Is there enough of Vision left without the stone to actually be an independent being? And I think there is. I think...
Not anymore.
Alright, well, aside from the gaping hole in his face, I think he can still be saved. We can still...
Sorry, can we stop it there? Because I'm really struggling not to laugh at that.
We can still save him. It's fine. It's just a little airborne. It's still good. It's still good. Maybe I'm in denial, but yeah, I think this transfer went through far enough that they can perhaps repair him, and there'll be enough of him left to be brought back. Maybe.
It's okay, they made a factory reset and made a backup.
Yeah, just turn it back on again. I don't know, maybe. The fact is they've got his body there by the end of the film, and they were working on trying to separate his mind from the stone. Did they do enough of a job so that there is something of him left? That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah, because his body...
It's yet to be seen.
Yeah, because his body didn't fade away and disappear. You could argue that's because he was already dead, but I don't know. He was there in that ending shot with all the Avengers groups together, and it's like, I don't know, I feel like he might still make a reappearance. But in terms of the relationship between Wanda and Vision, I liked it. I actually bought it as this... It seemed like a very young and fragile relationship, but I bought it considering their situations and who they are.
Yeah, I mean, said one of them is a 2-year-old with a brain made of the internet.
Yeah.
And the other one was basically indoctrinated by Nazis. So
yeah, so they are both, I guess. I feel like their fragile relationship, as Vision puts it, he was like, well, I for my part think that it might still, and then she's like, it works, our relationship, and he's like, yeah, it works. That sort of stammering made it seem quite young and a fragile new relationship, but it's one that I bought for them in their situation. It was completely believable, and it was heartbreaking when she had to off him at the end, I think.
Well, ultimately what that scene did is it humanized Vision that he hadn't had in previous
it helps
previous viewings of him.
Yeah, and he literally looked human as well during that part. He put up a visage and everything like that. But that's another thing, because this scene, the early scene, leads on to Captain America being introduced. To the Captain America theme song, which I know is playing in the background, which was awesome.
And Captain America who isn't Captain America.
Captain America. He is Captain America. Well, Captain America, who's not yes, all right. He's not Captain America anymore. Technically, he's not got no shield. He's got no suit.
But he has got a beard.
Yeah, he's got a beard. He's got a very manly Thor beard. Thor. But yeah, he's like, he turns up again. I think out of all of the characters, Cap had almost no development whatsoever.
It felt that he almost had no lines. Literally everything he was saying was a single sentence.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it, really? Yeah, I think he was very underutilized in this film, which means I hope the next one he gets more of the spotlight. Well,
let's be perfectly honest here. Cap is one of those characters that ultimately he's a leader.
Yeah.
He is the one that kind of gels people together.
Yes, he didn't get to do much of that in this film.
He didn't do any of that in this film.
No. I guess he's been leading the secret Avengers, like his Widow and Falcon, and I guess Wanda Maximoff at the time as well.
Which you don't hear anything of.
But yeah, you don't see any of that. That's all stuff that's been happening between Civil War and now, off screen.
Yeah, because they're the secret Avengers. Wouldn't be much of a secret otherwise.
Secret Avengers. Hide. Yeah, I mean, it would have been nice to see Captain America reasserting himself as the leader, because, you know, the Avengers need direction, and he was usually the one to provide it. Stark does that for his little team that he puts together, you know, the Guardians. Cap doesn't do that really for anything else. He makes the decision to take them to Wakanda, and I guess he leads the charge into the fight. You know, he tries to negotiate, and he's the first one into battle alongside Black Panther. But
aside from that,
but you're right. I didn't feel much. There were no. I don't remember any big speeches on his part. I don't remember him rallying people together. I'd like to see Cap being more Cap. You know, the Captain America, the front man of the Avengers, the first Avenger. Though, speaking of Tony Stark and his team, that's the other story arc, isn't it? Like the story arc that eventually leads to the confrontation with Thanos on Titan, which was Spidey, Peter, Stark, Strange, Drax, Mantis.
Yes.
Yeah, that was an intense scene. That fight, that was a good scene. I enjoyed that. In fact, that had my favourite joke of the whole film in it, where where Quill jumps over him, sticks a bomb on Thanos' back, and then jumps through Strange's portal and just flips him the bird before he jumps back through it. That was my favourite bit from the whole film, I think.
Which is a very Guardians thing, you know, it's not taking anything serious.
Yeah, which makes it a bit more weird for me than that they show a really good grasp of all the characters in this film, and for the most part they pay them their dues and they do them well. But the one scene where Peter Quill F's up and screws it up for the whole team, it's jarring.
Yeah, which I understand it's meant to be, you know, the fact that he's just found out that his love has just been brutally murdered.
It's an emotional reaction, and to be fair, we've seen them from Quill before in the past. I mean, Ego in Guardians 2 was sort of like, it broke my heart to put the tumour in her head, and then he instantly just like, what? Whips out his pistols, starts shooting at him.
Which, it's something else we pointed out is, why decide to just start wailing on him with fists if you're carrying pistols?
Yeah, why did he start slapping Thanos in the face? I mean, I get it, he's seeing red, he's angry, he's just found out what's happened to Gamora, but he starts just hitting him in the face, like, and Mantis loses her grip on him and things go to, like, pot after that. I don't know, I feel like people would have restrained him. I mean, Tony told him to cool off, but Nebula was behind him. I don't know, man. It just discredited Peter a lot in, I think, the eyes of a lot of people. I know I'm not the only one to say this as well. Many reviews, like I've seen of it, have pointed out that like this one moment was just like, I get it, he's emotional, but come on, man. You could have held it together for a little bit longer.
I'm not being funny. You can get red mist all you like, but there's still some kind of thing that it says, don't punch him, shoot him.
Maybe it's just because things went like so bad so quickly after that and it ruined everything. It was just like, maybe that's why it's like what could have been, like there's a situation of sort of like, this could have been if he'd only, maybe that's what's going on. But
well, it's a cognitive dissonance though, isn't it? It's the fact that it just suddenly completely shatters that experience, the fact that you were going, and again, because I had quite a negative view, it probably affected me a bit more, but It was the fact that it just completely took me out of that scene. It was like beforehand, I was feeling the scene, I was feeling the tension, and then straight away it just took me out of the film of just why did that happen?
Yeah, like I guess they could have had Thanos snap out of it and the scene go the way it did, but without discrediting himself and sort of like losing his. Yeah, that's the only time I think where the character sort of acted in a way that I felt was, alright, I get what's happening, because we've seen Peter act like this before, but never to the point where it's endangered other people, sort of thing. And then Strange hands over the gem to Thanos, time gem, after.
And also lays a gem down verbally.
Yes, he says sort of like, what was it? It was like the only way, wasn't it?
Yeah, there's only one outcome that we win.
Yeah, because he's watched the future, he's seen all these different outcomes, and he says there's only one way where we could have beaten him. As a viewer, we presume it's a plan they enacted to try and get the glove off of him. I don't think that's what's happening. I think they are currently on that one path to win. I think the plan that he saw all along involved Thanos winning and wiping out half of existence to begin with, so that they can new game plus it and do it again a bit later on. I think. Or
so we think, but
yeah, I think they're on the path to win. This is why Strange is like, I'm sorry, it was the only way, just where he disappears. They didn't know, obviously, who was going to be wiped out by this 50%, 50-50 chance thing, but I think they knew this, or at least Strange knew that this outcome was inevitable.
That this was the only one.
Yeah, they'd have to endure this to then go on and win the actual war, sort of thing. Meanwhile, there's the huge battle on Wakanda happening, and yeah, when Thor turns up back on scene again, that was good. When he finally completes the hammer.
Axe.
Hammer.
Axe.
Hammer? Hacks.
But yeah, hacks.
Elite hacks.
But no, it was a really interesting point actually. That throughout all their little personal battles and the fact that they're taking out one or two of them at a time, it shows the power difference, shall we say, when Thor arrives and just starts going to town on groups of enemies at a time.
Yeah,
it's like, yeah, he is actually a god.
And he's utilising the thunder abilities that he learned in Ragnarok. Like, he's doing all this whilst surrounded by thunder and it just firing off randomly and stuff. Thought that was a pretty good way of sort of. I mean, they even address that in the film, don't they? Because like when he jumps down, Banner's just like, "Oh yeah, you're done for now," or something like that to all the bad guys. He's just like, because Thor's turned up. I like how the film does that a lot. It's a very self-aware film. It's aware of all these tropes that it's got going for it. Like when Thor turns up, and we as the audience are aware of the vast power difference between like Thor and Cap, for example. So he turns up and Banner's like, "Ah, you're done for now."
Yeah, Banner is definitely one of those characters that seems to echo the audience's sentiments quite a bit.
Along with characters like the Guardians as well. What was the other one? When he's talking to Thor on the Forge.
Oh, the self-aware.
The heroic bravado. The bravado that he sort of lampshades, where he's like,
"Only if it kills me."
Yeah, he's like, that's it. Yeah, he's like, "Only the sun, you can't do that. It'll kill you." And he's like, "Only if I die."
Yes, that's what killing you does.
Yeah, again, it's things like that. It's like taking tropes like the heroic bravado and like lampshading them, just being sort of like addressing them and being sort of like, well, yeah. When Okaye points out like Scarlet Witch and she jumps onto the field and she throws stuff and it goes flying, and she's like really powerful, and it's that classic trope of sort of like saving the most powerful players for like later escalation of a fight sort of thing, and she's just like, why was she up there? It's just like, yeah, it's like I think Marvel's always done that. I think there's a scene in Iron Man 2 where,
God, that's going back a bit.
Yeah,
now.
I know. Where I just remember it though, where Stark has these lasers built into his like gloves, and he fires them off, and it mows down about 20 of them, and he does that after they've shot a load down and engaged in fisticuffs, and he's like taking out all these droids, and then Rhodes turns to him and is just like, maybe next time open with that. It's like, yeah, good point. Why didn't you? Yeah, Marvel's always been pretty good at that, and they continue to do it in this film as well. But then things go silent, and we get the big drop that Thanos has arrived on Earth, everyone beelines for Cap's position, who's trying to defend Vision.
Badly.
Everyone's throwing themselves at him, and he's just literally hand waving them away. Wanda has to destroy Vision because they've run out of time, so he's got to destroy the stone before Thanos can get to it. I did not actually see this coming. You did.
What, the outcome?
Well, not the outcome, the rewinding time Vision.
I pieced together the rest of the scene.
Yeah.
About 2 seconds before the rewind of time.
I was all swept up in the narrative. I'd completely forgotten what the time stone did. I was like, oh no, he's just got another Infinity Stone. That's bad. And I didn't bother thinking that it was the time stone.
And yeah, but my reaction was, but wait, he's got the time stone and he can tell about time. Oh no. No. And then he's going to get that stone, and then he's got all of them. And yeah, the whole train of procession of thoughts just happened immediately. And it's like, I can see exactly what's going to happen here now.
Let me ask you a question. Did it still have the emotional... Like, did it still have any sort of resonance with you? Having to do that then, if you saw it coming?
Actually, you know what? It didn't.
Did it not?
As soon as I'd figured it out, it lost a lot of impact.
For me, I thought it was her having to kill him, I guess. I felt, because I didn't see it coming, because I completely forgot it was a thing that he could rewind time. I was like, her having to kill him, I bought it. I thought, this is it, this is final. He's actually going to be written out now. I knew it was coming. I knew he was going to get axed. I knew how it was going to happen. This is unfolding exactly as I thought. At least that's what I was thinking, completely having forgotten about the time gem. So when Thanos turns up and he rewinds time, putting Vision back together, I was just like, oh yeah, damn.
Oh, that's a thing.
Yeah, I had the same reaction as pretty much the Avengers. I was like, oh, well, bugger. I will say that scene, the brutality of it was just so on the spot, like we were saying earlier. How, like, callously Thanos just grabs Vision after this emotional... The contrast between this and the emotional distress and the long time it took to take him out beforehand, and Wanda doing it, the emotions that were running through there compared to the next scene where it's just Thanos so callously grabbing him, picking him up, grabbing the gem, ripping it out of his face and throwing him aside.
Well, it wasn't even callous, it was just methodical.
It was just matter of fact. It was just Thanos was like, there is the gem.
I need that stone.
He didn't even look.
Take the stone.
Did not even look at Vision. Just grabbed him, picked him up, not looking at Vision, just looking at the stone, ripping it out of his head, throwing him aside like it's nothing. And that whole scene, when compared to the emotions that were running before in the scene beforehand, where she was just like in tears, and he's like, it's not fair, it shouldn't be you, but it has to be. To me, that really had I guess, their desired impact, where it was just that coupled with the complete emotionless, just, yep, my stone now. But the minute he laid his hands on that stone, I knew 100% how the film was going to end. Which is weird.
People gonna die.
Yeah, which is weird, because I walked into the film thinking, I know how this is going to end. I read Infinity War. I know what's going to happen. If they don't, I'm going to be disappointed, so this is how it's going to happen. During the course of the film, I completely forgot like what all my expectations disappeared throughout the entire film. But now they all came back and I was like, no, this is going to end how I thought. The film fooled me into thinking it could have a happy ending halfway through.
It lulled you into a false sense of security, one might say.
Yes, yeah, exactly. But by this stage, I was like, no, now he's got them. It's over. Doesn't matter what happens now. You can't fool me anymore now, Marvel. I know how this is going down now. Yeah.
So yeah. Okay, let's break into it.
Yeah.
Who's left?
Ooh. So there's Cap, Thor, Tony Stark with Nebula, Hulk, Black Widow, Kaye, War Machine, and Rocket.
Yeah.
I think that's it. Most of the original Avengers. We can presume maybe Ant-Man, Wasp, and Hawkeye, because they weren't in this film, that they'll turn up in the next one, but we don't know for certain.
Allegedly Captain Marvel, but we'll get on to that.
And Captain Marvel as well. The other thing I wanted to quickly ask before we get to like the very end, when Thanos was when they were all turning to dust after the snap of his fingers and he committed his 50-50 random genocide. Was there like any sort of impact for you watching these characters disappear?
I think because of, let's put it bluntly, the amount of death in this film.
Yeah.
It was meant to be impactful, but to me it lost any impact at all. It's like, okay, so they're just gone.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, for me, it wasn't as... I don't believe the people that he snapped his fingers and made disappear, I don't think they're gone. They can't be, because that's a lot of the big characters, that's a lot of franchises. That's
a lot of money, let's face it.
That's a lot of money that just literally went up in smoke and ash. So from that point of view, I guess, but from an in-universe lore sort of viewpoint as well, I think anyone killed that in that fashion can be undone by maybe the gauntlet itself again. But
well, there's a couple of pet theories on that.
There are, I guess,
that we both share.
I did that like last, but they started disappearing, so I was not convinced they'd gone forever. The girls behind me, man, when Bucky Barnes disappeared, like, they started crying in the cinema.
I've got to say, that's one of the most uninspiring phrases you can have just before you dive. Steve?
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah. I mean, when they started disappearing, that was I wasn't convinced they were actually dead. It impacted me less in the fact of, oh no, oh no, they're all being killed off. It was more sort of like when they presented like two characters on screen, I was like, which one of them's going to go? Who is it? Who's it going to be? Like
it's 50-50.
Yeah, exactly. When T'Challa went to pick up like Hawkeye and was like, this is no place to die, I thought it was going to be her that disappeared. So when he disappeared, I was like, oh.
Well, that changes everything.
Yeah, and if Panther can go, no one's safe. I didn't think they're completely gone, but I will say Marvel did have more threw more weight into it than I was expecting.
You weren't expecting them to have the stones to do it.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting them stones, but yeah, it was more sort of like trying to work out who was going to disappear rather than sort of actually feeling those disappearances. And because of that, when Spidey freaked out, even though he came off as a little kid, on rewatching I was like, okay, yeah, that was really well done. On the first time I was too much concerned with sort of like, who's disappearing? Is it really Spider-Man that's going to disappear, or is this a red herring and Stark's going to be the one to vanish?
But when you look at it, it's meant to be this big emotional scene, but because you've just seen so many other people disappear, it loses its effect. If they'd have done that one first and then cut to the others, then you might. Again, it's run into that issue of it flitting about too much between the two locations. But yeah, if they'd have had that been one of the first characters to go when Peter starts going, I think it would have had a lot more impact. What I aptly name as death fatigue. The fact that he's like, oh, they're gone. Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Spidey's gone as well.
Okay, yeah, I can see that. I do see that. That's not the problem I had with it. The problem I had with it was very much like I say, it was me. My mind was focused on the wrong thing during that whole scene. Watching it again, I was like,
do you think it's just because I'm cold and uncaring?
Maybe you as a Thanos. Yeah, I was focused on it for the wrong reasons. My mind was elsewhere watching it. Though Thanos at least gets his happy ending. Gets to go sit on his farm and smile at the sunrise.
Allegedly.
Allegedly, yeah. All right, yeah. Well, yeah. So that's really wraps up, because Maria Hill, Nick Fury, they also get wiped out. Again, I thought it was going to be one or the other, not both. And then we get the Captain Marvel teaser, which I got super excited about because I thought it was the symbol for Nova to begin with, and Nova's like my favourite of the galactic Marvel community sort of thing. I was like, yeah, Nova. Oh no, that's Marvel. No.
I said, wouldn't it be such a disappointment and such a very short film if it turns out she disappears too?
Yeah, turns out it's not set in the 90s. We see her like land on Earth, get out, and then just gone. Credits. Yeah.
That's another 60 mil. Yep. Easy.
Yeah. But yeah, okay, so overall, how did it make you feel? Because when it was all said and done, my cinema was like emotionally spent. Like, it was just dead quiet. Everyone was just drained. There was none of that after movie murmuring going on or comparing a favourite best. Everyone filed out of the cinema just sort of shocked almost. In a good way, I think, though. Like, I felt like everyone was sort of like, wow, they actually did it, sort of. I felt like that was the sort of reaction.
I think part of the reaction was that it's going to be another, it's another year for the next one. And I think that was the only real grumbles I heard. It's like, another year? Really?
Yeah, I guess this ties into your biggest criticism, which is like how you felt after the film, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, too many times in this, really, that that there were a lot of points that I didn't enjoy. It just felt a little bit empty, and the best way I can describe it is it feels like I have Stockholm syndrome. I wasn't a fan of it, but I need to see the next one.
Yeah,
I can't leave this story unfinished. I need to see the next part.
Well, I guess it did its job then, didn't it? Because you got to come back for part 2.
That's another cinema ticket.
Yeah, but it unfolded pretty much as I expected, with 1 or 2 changes. However, whilst watching the film, I forgot what I expected, if that makes sense. So that's kind of my review for it. I think if you like Marvel and like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and you've watched it all, you've seen it all, you've kept up to date with it all, you're definitely going to love this film. You're probably on the same sort of wavelength if you're like a massive fan of it. I think that's where most of its like unapologetic praise is coming from. And I think people who don't like the Marvel universe or aren't as into it probably won't find the same level of fulfillment from this film as other, as those fans would.
Is that a pocket dig at me there?
No, because you've seen all the films.
Yeah, you could end up being in the same boat as me.
Yeah,
it's unlikely.
Yeah,
but you may do.
Well, that's the interesting thing, isn't it? Which is the whole reason I wanted to sort of do this chat, is because you've seen all the films, but for you, the issues that cropped up, which were there, like I saw the same issues as well, but they seemed to hit home more.
Yeah.
And to be fair, yes, this film is not perfect. I don't think it's definitely not a 10 out of 10 film. It's not a perfect film in any way. It is literally completely payoff, and I think this best exemplifies, out of any sort of film, the most frustrating answer to a review you can give, which is, yeah, I mean, if you like it, you're gonna love this film. If you don't like it, you're not going to like it. But that's about the only answer I can give to this film. It's like the representation of that sort of review, because it is literally the payoff to all of the Marvel MCU. And if not necessarily even if you didn't like it, but even if you missed 1 or 2 things, this film, if you don't have like a near encyclopedic knowledge of all the events of Marvel, you're going to miss things, and it's not going to be as fulfilling as it should be, as as it had been made to be.
And we're not going to sugarcoat it. It's not the case that we're trying to stick and appease the masses by not making an opinion either way. No, that's genuinely how we feel. It's if you're going to enjoy it, you're going to enjoy it. If you don't, you don't.
Yeah, I think it's probably the biggest example of that I've seen. As dumb as an obvious conclusion as that sounds, that's kind of this film, because of its very nature. It's the conclusion to a 10-year story that's already been being told. So.
Correction, it's the almost conclusion to a 10-year story.
Alright, you're not going to let go, right? You're just going to be like, no, because they're holding you hostage, I guess. The Marvel MCU's not going to die with Infinity War.
Disney won't let them die.
Disney lets nothing die. Predictions? Part 2?
Yeah.
Right.
So, let's start off with you.
Okay, so alright, you got the obvious ones that a lot of people have talked about, and the most obvious ones. The one that I think is going to happen is that they are going to have to track down Thanos, get that gauntlet back off of him. The gauntlet's fried, so I think they're going to go back to the Star 4G place and get that second gauntlet that Rocket pointed out earlier on, saying, did it look anything like that? There's a second gauntlet there. I reckon they're going to go back, create a second gauntlet, get the gems back from Thanos, and I think one of those gems they're going to have to take back is going to be the Soul Stone, at which point I reckon Cap will need to sacrifice himself to be the spirit to fuel the Soul Stone. Then they're going to use it to Control Z, everything Thanos has just done. And I think anyone that was turned to dust will come back. Anyone killed in any other way will remain gone. That's what I think.
This is where my theory differs slightly.
Yeah, go.
Instead of everyone who disappeared being, per se, dead, I thought of it in the case of maybe they've not killed them, because it's a whole 50%, right? It's a 50% of the universe.
Yep.
What if there's just a splintered second universe that has the 50% of the universe that got deleted?
Yeah, I mean, this not as crazy as it sounds, because in the comics, the Soul Stone can be used to suspend people from existence. Still think of it like a suspended animation for a soul. You don't just, it doesn't just kill them, it just like removes them from reality and takes them away from everything else. Your idea could be kind of like that.
Which then I think as well, it also would make a very different second movie, knowing that these people who you thought were dead are actually working from the other side of it, and Strange knows that that's the case.
Yeah.
Again, head theories here.
And your idea as well was that perhaps even Thanos might have been in the 50% that was wiped out.
At the end of the day, he stated himself that it was a completely random occurrence.
As per his original plan with his own species, yeah.
And therefore, there is every chance of it, the fact that he was part of that 50% that got wiped.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, that would be a weird twist, wouldn't it? Because I could imagine them finally finding Thanos and his location, tracking him down, only to find he's actually not there. He's been dead. He was one of the 50 that got wiped out, maybe. I don't know. We saw him port away at the end, but then, yeah, I guess.
He's actually in the 50% in the Splinter universe.
That would be a weird twist, something like that.
But yeah, we don't know.
And then, of course, there's always the idea that they could just literally get the time gem and rewind time. But I think that's probably the weakest of the endings, purely because from a plot point, narrative standpoint, it's like, that's boring. That's just like...
It's also only using one stone to rewind against the power of the 5 stones.
Yeah, a change made by those 5 stones can be undone by the power of one of them?
Yeah, it makes no sense at all.
Yeah.
Personally.
Yeah, I suppose that's another way of looking at it as well. Plus, I think time-changing stories like that are just one step beyond, and it was all a dream.
Yeah, winding time back by 3 seconds is okay. Winding it back by considerably longer...
To change events that they never happened. Yeah, that's like... okay, fine, that's how we're fixing this. Okay, it's like the cheat. It's like, alright, fine, you're cheating, whatever.
I would be really disappointed if that turned out to be the truth.
Yeah, I don't think they'll do that though. So, but yeah, those are all the predictions for part 2, which I guess I'm excited to see, and you are going to go see whether you like it or not. So
no, I got to see. There's no two ways about it, unfortunately.
Yeah. Would seeing it change your rating to the first one? Do you think the very fact that part 2 comes out, when it comes out, do you reckon your rating for the first one might change?
Yeah, because seeing just one makes it very, very difficult to judge. There's without seeing both of them. If the second one comes out and it's a masterpiece, then I will view the first one as different, because it's the whole setup into it. If it turns out it's garbage, it may end up putting me off for the entire MCU. I don't know. Yeah,
I feel like you want to give this film an okay rating, like right in the middle, being like 3 out of 6 stars. But because it's 50%. not complete in your head, you're like, no, not till it's done. I'm not giving you that.
I reserve my judgment until I have seen the whole thing.
I feel like that's why you gave it 2 out of 6, because it's like, I will give you 3 if you are finished, but you're not finished, so I'm holding one back because no, not yet. You're not done, and I don't like it. I feel like that's sort of the reason one's being held back, because your general review of it seems very middle of the ground. You seem like, I liked this, I didn't like this, and one biggest gripe seems to be, I don't like how blatantly it's just like, now come back for part 2.
Yeah, I don't like the fact that it's rushed, and I don't like the fact that it's just a way to sell more tickets.
I suppose, yeah. I personally, like I said, I was fanboying throughout the whole thing, so I'll admit my review is probably coloured in the opposite direction because of that. but I liked it. So I guess overall, if you put our ratings together, you get 5 and 2. You get, what's that, 3 and math. 3 and,
I think it's 7.
Alright, yes. 7 out of 6 Infinity Stones.
That's not how this works.
Shut up. Go see Infinity War. Go see Infinity War Part 2. We're done. It's an awesome film. Yeah. Alright. Thanks for listening. Yeah, I've been Rick.
I've been Tyr.
This has been a long ass episode and I need to get to editing it together. So I will see you next time. Thanks for listening.
Take care.
Goodbye.